How much risk are you okay with? By nature, I'm a careful risk taker. For example, I went to South Africa in 1984 and then back again with the family in 1989, even though both times the country was in crisis. What made this possible was, yes, trust. I believed in God, trust in other people's wisdom, but particularly trust in a South African friend of colour who believed that this was the call of God. We all respond to risk differently, but for all of us, taking risks depends on trust. Trust, yes, in ourselves, trust in other people, but for people of faith, trust above all in God. Risk is threaded throughout the Bible. God takes a big risk creating a universe, and particularly human beings, with relative freedom. Will they go the right way? Will they do the right thing? Human beings in the Bible are challenged to take a big risk with God. Is this God for us or against us? Is this God to be trusted or a threat? The Old Testament reading for this week, Genesis 22 verses 1 to 14, is all about this sort of God risk. Abraham's been told that through his heir, Isaac, the promise of descendants as numerous as the sand on the seashore and the stars in the heavens will be fulfilled. Yet here we see him called to offer his son in sacrifice, with the risk that that promise may not happen. How does Abraham react? By trusting that God's promises will emerge through this apparently terrible task, trust rooted in what he already knows about God's faithfulness in less challenging calls. Like St. Paul in Romans chapter 6, Abraham feels now that he's a sort of person without choice. He must embrace God's risk as a slave of righteousness, you might say, even though that right way looks very wrong from where he is looking at things. Like the disciples in our gospel reading from Matthew chapter 10, he has to trust that the risk will actually lead to blessing, even though he cannot see or force that outcome. At the moment, there's a lot of trust required of us, as there is a lot of risk that we face, particularly as the lockdown eases. Trust in expert guidance, trust in government advice, and trust by the government in the common sense of the British people, though I'm never quite sure how common our common sense is. As people of faith, risk-taking is part of our DNA, and this God risk is about trust that God is with us and for us, a trust especially rooted in the stories of Jesus and embodied in the long story of the Church across the centuries and throughout the world. We have yet to see how trustworthy the decision to ease the lockdown will be, though I pray it will indeed be something worthwhile. We do, though, have much more evidence of the trustworthiness of taking the God risk, and that's what this Sunday's Bible passages are challenging us with, to take that risk day by day, moment by moment, whether we can see the way ahead or not.